This is the Retro XP Podcast, a podcast dedicated to retro video games from the first and second gen with the Odyssey and the Atari 2600 all the way up to Gen 7 with the Xbox 360 and the PS3. Today in this episode, we'll be talking about my experience with the Time Breaker light gun. This is a light gun that you can use on your 4K TV with your PS1 and PS2. PS2, that's a new one for me. Some pickups and games I've been playing. A well-known YouTube content creator moving on, a new way to detect counterfeit games, and an old man yells at cloud discussion about old things we grew up with as gamers that younger gamers just will never understand how we survived. With that, let's dive right in. Retro XP is part of the Hair of the Dogcast network, so be sure to check out patreon.com/Hair of the Dogcast to check out every show the network has and get access to the exclusive community Discord. There is a 30-day free trial available if you want to try it out, and consider donating to get access to a lot of that content. Basically, there's content on movie podcasts, there's a Zombie Dogs podcast where we talk about Resident Evil, and so many other different shows. Otherwise, you can follow me on X, Threads, Instagram, and YouTube at RetroX Podcast. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on, be sure to follow and enable notifications so you can find out when I drop a new episode. Now, as far as pickups go, I've been really trying to save money over the last month or two because Midwest Gaming Classic is coming up in a couple weeks. And usually for conventions, I come ready to spend, so to speak. So I haven't had a few pickups lately that I've been really kind of looking at or got or anything. I want to say the last one I got was almost like a gift. I think I talked about the Lethal Enforcers game for the Sega CD that I got complete in box. But my local game shop had a drop that I was excited for, that I was like, you know what, maybe I should pick that up now while it's there. It's a game that's been on my list for a while. And that game is X-Files, Resist and Serve for the PlayStation 2. When I was growing up in middle school and high school, I was a huge X-Files fan. Man, just the way they wrote that show, designed that show to kind of appeal to both sides of the aisle. If you've never watched the X-Files, I do recommend it. It's on Hulu. All the seasons are. But it's a show about two FBI agents that are investigating kind of weird or random or kind of obscure cases that really can't be explained. They could be, random murder cases, but there's weird occult happenings or aliens, whatever. It's very, the overall theme of it is obviously the government's hiding the conspiracy of aliens being here on this planet and whatever. And one, of the FBI agents, Scully, Mulder, he is the kind of the believer that wants to believe. Basically, he has a poster in his office that says, "I want to believe." And then, Dana Scully, she is the kind of the anti-Mulder. She is the skeptic. She is the one that doesn't believe in any of this stuff. But every episode, she comes in with this rational explanation on why the things are happening in this case or how these things are happening the way they are. And, Mulder is well, I don't know. It could be ghosts. It could be goblins. It could be demons. It could be the occult. It could be aliens, But so the episode ends with kind of having it be open-ended. Every episode is different, where it's well, it could be either. It's kind of crazy. So they had this game come out for the PlayStation 2, and I ended up actually playing that. I'll talk about it later in the games I've been playing. But I also picked up Luigi's Mansion while I was there. And I also picked up a pair of component cables. They were aftermarket GameCube component cables for the GameCube. Or I shouldn't say, for the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and the Xbox, that generation, we started to see component cables coming out because it was in order to get good quality, S-Video was the way to go. But now that I got component cables, GameCube games look really good on my HDTV. I also picked up a Genesis game called Blades of Vengeance. It looked kind of cool, kind of a side-scrolling Golden Axe looking type of game. side-scrolling platformer game. I watched a video of it when I was in the store because I looked at the box art and I was like, this looks interesting. And yeah, just picked it up. So I also picked up a repro copy of Terranigma for the SNES. Now, this was a game that was developed by Enix, and it was the same team that developed Illusion of Gaia. And I've always had this on my list, but recently when I started looking it up, I was like, oh, this game never came out in America. It's weird why it just didn't, because it seems like it was a game that would probably do pretty well in America. I mean, it was made by the same team that did Illusion of Gaia, and I forget if this game came after it or not. I'm not for sure. But I see it only came out in Japan and PAL regions, so did some eBay sleuthing, and I was like, okay, well, I could buy a used PAL version of this, and I could play it on my Polymega, or I could just buy a reproduction copy of it, and it comes with the box and everything. Now, say what you will about reproduction copies, but this person that was selling it, obviously it was plain as day on the ad and the listing. It's a reproduction copy, not an official copy. This game never came out in America. It's a regular old SNES cart. So, and it can work, these reproduction copies work just as well on original hardware and the emulation hardware. So, yeah. I mean, I just picked it up. And I'm glad I did. You know, I paid pretty much the same as a used copy, except with this one, I have a box that I can display. So, yeah, not bad. Also, I got Beat Mania for the PlayStation 2, and I got this from a friend. I bought Resident Evil 9, and I played it. I beat it a couple times, and he's like, when you're done with it, can you sell it to me? Because I'm still waiting for my deluxe edition copy to come in the mail. Amazon's telling me it's mid-May now, so I don't know. We'll see. And he's like, is there any used games that I have in my collection that you would want? And he just had a full, copy of Beat Mania for the PlayStation 2 just sitting there. Game, complete in box, and the little DJ mixing board thing. So I was like, yeah, I'll take that. So not for sure if it was worth it or not, but I'm going to have a game collector. So I haven't played it yet. I've never played it before, but I'm kind of curious to see what it's like. So stay tuned. Hopefully on a future episode, I'll talk more about it. And like I said, the Midwest Gaming Classic is coming up soon, and I'm kind of loosely compiling a list of what I want to pick up, what I think I want to focus on. And last year, I think there was quite a few PlayStation 2 games I focused on when I went to Retrofest down in Arkansas. And I talked all about that. I was there hunting for Ratchet and Clank games and Jack and Daxter games. This time around, I think I'm debating picking up a TurboGrafx 16 in a few games. And I kind of was thinking, like, I want there to be like a new system I want to get and I want to kind of focus on. So I may look for a TurboGrafx 16, and I may, be on the hunt for some of those games. I don't know if I want to try to get I think I do want that TurboGrafx 16 attachment, but I think I would just, if I played TurboGrafx 16 games, I think I'd just rather stick with my Polymega. But I never had one before. And obviously it came out during the same time the SNES and the Genesis came out. And I would say 80% of your friends had one of those two systems. Not a lot of people had the TurboGrafx 16. So I was doing some digging and I looked at how much these games are costing. And I'm like, ooh, this retro market is, hate the retro market. But yeah, so I'm debating that. I'm also debating Atari. The company itself usually shows up to the MGC. And I think last year I saw they were selling the Atari 7800 Plus. And it's a new system, but it's the Atari 7800, but new, basically. Like new hardware, new. It's HDMI, plugs right into your HDTVs. You don't need old hardware or anything like that. So, and the plus is in it because obviously it's got a lot of quality of life features in it. And it, takes all the old cartridges. It even takes all the homebrew cartridges that a lot of people are making. I mean, Atari is printing out new cartridges right now for a lot of the licenses that they have. So I'm thinking about picking that up and kind of seeing what, what I can get out of it. I know Atari games are ridiculously cheap. So maybe I'll pull together some Atari games that I'm interested in picking up. So we'll see. Of course, there's quite a few other games I want to pick up too, but I think that's going to be harder because I pick up games from random systems, and it's hard for me to focus sometimes. But like I said, I have the whole weekend. I have all day Saturday, all day Sunday that I'm just going to cruise around and hit up vendors multiple times and seeing what I missed. So, yeah. So that's what I picked up. That's what I plan on picking up. So I think there's going to be a full Midwest Gaming Classic episode that I will be posting sometime in May where I'll talk all about my experiences and talk about everything that I pick up. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, let's talk about what I've been playing in the retro space. So I talked about this in recent releases in a past episode that we got Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly Remake that just came out recently. And if you remember playing it, Fatal Frame 2, I think out of the trilogy, and I've said this before, out of the trilogy, Fatal Frame 2 was the best one. I think it was more open-ended. It was a bigger area. I think the story and the character stories were better, I think, than all the other ones. And I think overall it was just scarier. And they decided to remake it. The original developers came back to kind of like develop it along with some new ones. And I want to say I got through maybe the majority of it. I would say more than half of it. It's a really good game. It's a really good remake. There's a lot of quality of life changes that they did. I remember playing this during October, during Spooky Games Month. And I don't know, and maybe you could tell me out there if you're listening to this, if you played the original Fatal Frame. I don't remember there being a dodge mechanic. Because if you don't know what Fatal Frame is, you're basically these young Japanese girls, sisters, that are in this old kind of spooky Japanese village. And they're being called to it, so to speak, because of some crazy ancient Shinto ritual that happened and killed everybody in the village and left it derelict. And of course, naturally, the two girls have a link to this ritual that happened. So the primary mechanism you use for fighting ghosts in this game is a camera, the camera obscura, so to speak. You go into first person mode, you take a quick shot of your of the ghost that's attacking you, and obviously there's certain parts of the ghost you can attack, or like, the closer they get to you, the more powerful your camera shot is, which means it's riskier. So I don't recall there being like a dodge button to where it's like if you need to dodge the ghost if they get too close, you can hit circle. I'm playing this on PlayStation. You can hit the circle button and then you do this kind of backwards dodge to give yourself a little bit of distance, especially if they get too close. I don't remember that being in the original. If it was, I sure as hell didn't use it because I'm not used to using it now. And I forget that it's there until all of a sudden, especially if I'm in a long battle with a ghost, the drowning ghost, the one by the bridge, she takes forever. I think I've fought her twice in this game already. And it's like, God, this is so annoying. This takes so long. But yeah, I forget that that's there. And if that's a new thing that they added, it's definitely a nice thing to have because it kind of makes the combat a little less clunky, a little bit more fluid. So, we got modern games. We got so many quality of life improvements now. Let's start to, in some cases you want to keep it as original as possible, which they did. It looks pretty much spot on, like a 1-for-1 remake, just, updated graphics. This is made with the new engines, new animations. There's tons of filters that you can use now. You could turn off all those filters, which is kind of nice if you don't want to play with like film grain or anything like that on. Usually I don't like to play with film grain. In this case, I do because I think it adds to the atmosphere. But this is out on like PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X. It's good. If you're a fan of the original one, you're going to love this one. This is pretty much like a spot-on one-on-one remake. So definitely worth your time. I talked about X-Files, Resist or Serve. I popped this in right away over the weekend when I bought it. And man, I never played this when it first came out, which is crazy because I just spent my time talking about how much I loved the X-Files TV series. And this game is pretty much like a Resident Evil clone. And I'm like, how the hell could I have missed this? I don't know where my brain was. I think nowadays it's kind of, I don't want to say it's easy to keep up with new games that are coming out because we have the internet, we have YouTube, we have, websites, social media, all pumping this content to us. And maybe back then in the early 2000s, it was harder to find games because they were a little bit more obscure. But still, you think hearing about an X-Files game, especially when I was in the PS2 generation era, I'm just surprised I missed it. This is basically, you can control one or the other, and there's times when both your characters will actually interact and like kind of play the same parts together, and then you'll branch off and then come back together. And it's really cool because, you'll split up, but like Scully will do one thing, Mulder will do another thing. So it almost kind of encourages two playthroughs because it's like, well, hey, I did this playthrough with Scully. Now I want to do this with Mulder. I'm not for sure. I'm pretty sure they have like different attacks or maybe different things that they're experts in. Because like Scully has like a punch, like a melee attack that she can do. And then Mulder, I think, has a kick or something like that. At least what I've seen with some of the gameplay footage. But yeah, this is pretty much like I don't know. This may be an unpopular opinion, but I like tank controls in these types of games. And I wish this game had tank controls. It's got 3D controls because the game is kind of in the Resident Evil style where it's like static cameras with some of it moving. And there's occasionally times when the character is moving toward the camera or away from the camera or sideways. And obviously, whichever way you point the analog controller is the way that they go according to the screen. But in these games, I just wish it was tank controls. That's the way my brain works. That's the way I was raised. But I mean, it just makes it confusing, especially when it comes from scene to scene. And like all of a sudden your character flicks from a scene to another scene. And then like your character does this weird turnaround because you're holding the analog stick a completely different direction in the next scene. If you get what I'm saying. I know, like I said, unpopular opinion. Most people, like, we've moved on from tank controls. Tank controls are not the standard, not the norm. It's still there for us old fogies that miss those days. But I haven't seen if there is a way to fix it, actually. Maybe I should pour through the options menu a little bit more, see if there is a way. I can't imagine there would be. But so far, I'm having fun with it. I'm a few hours in. It's, you're investigating a town that's kind of suspected of having witchcraft happen, but the townspeople are zombies, kind of. They're like kind of like monsters, so they don't attack you fast. They don't attack you slow either. But there's plenty of ammo to go around. There's plenty of opportunities that you can dispatch the monsters. You can run away from them most of the time, or you can just take them out. But there's really no threat, no survival horror threat like Resident Evil, where it's like, oh no, am I going to run out of? I mean, is it claustrophobic? No, not really. I encountered one boss battle so far, which is a weird one. I go into this gas station that has like kind of like a car lift and a mechanic shop in it, and all of a sudden I'm being attacked by. It's weird. I'm being attacked by a zombie, quote unquote, that has no legs, and it's on one of those like mechanic creepers. The little bed with wheels that slide underneath cars, and he's just like on this creeper, like dragging with his arms like toward me, trying to attack me and slap me, and shooting him doesn't do anything, which took me a while to understand because I'm shooting this guy and I'm like, well, I have unloaded so much into this guy. How the hell is he not dead yet? But there's a car lift that has a car on it, and you can enable it to have to go up and down, and you have to trap him underneath the car and then go to the switch and have the car drop on him. That's how you cause damage to him. It's a really weird way to dispatch an enemy. And it took me a minute to figure it out, but I'm like, okay, this is a way to kill an enemy. It was one of those things. I was like, this seems, when you see it as a potential game mechanic, and you're like, there's no way that's how I have to do it. And then of course you do it, and then you see the life bar go down, and it's like, oh god, that's wild. But yeah, these were the days, man, where there was no mini map, there was no checkpoint system. This is manual saves, as it should be. There's no, checkpoint system that pops up on your screen. There's even no health bar. Like, it's literally just nothing on the screen. So I miss the days where there was like your screen is not cluttered with health information, ammo information, map information, other checkpoints, or even like the stupid compass. I don't need to know the most games. I don't need to know the nautical direction of where I'm going. And so, so long as I can kind of like look at a map and be like, okay, you pull up the map in this game and you can say, okay, I got to turn right and left here. Then I'll get to the area destination. And the game's not big, but it's good. Honestly, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I hope to keep going with it, because knowing me, sometimes I take too long and I get bored with a game and then I move on to something else. Another game I played, Luigi's Mansion. Never played that game when it first came out on the GameCube. And I can't believe I never did, because I saw it and I was like, I really should have that in my collection too. And I picked it up, played it over the weekend too. And I'm like, this game's super fun. Like, I don't know how the hell I missed it. I've heard good things about it. A lot of people like it. And I've never knocked it. It's just, I've always thought like, the game's not for me. Game's not for me. I'm not really interested in it. But playing it is just so much fun. It's comical. It's a comical, lighthearted ghost story game. When you think about it, it's sad because there's a part where you fight a ghost baby. And you think to yourself, that baby died. That baby died. That's crazy. All these ghosts, they died somehow. No story as of now as to why or how, but yeah, so you're Luigi, and if you don't know the premise of this story, you're Luigi, and apparently you inherit this like haunted mansion, and Luigi's just a big scaredy cat, so you're walking around in this third person view, and you're going from room to room. Some doors are locked, some doors aren't, and you're fighting ghosts with a vacuum cleaner, so to speak. And then there are certain checkpoints where you can kind of like dump the ghosts, especially the boss battle ghosts. You can dump them into like a kind of like a, kind of like in Ghostbusters. Why am I drawing a blank? The big tank, the containment unit that they would keep the ghosts in. So there's something like that this mansion has. There's this mad scientist that's been in this haunted house for a while, but yeah, you gotta kind of, not every area in the mansion's unlocked, so you gotta kind of go here, do this, go there, do that, and there's multiple ways ghosts are hiding, so you gotta trick them, you gotta kind of get them out. There's some ghosts that are easy to swipe and suck up. There's others where you got to be a little creative with how you do it. There's some ghosts where it's like, there was one in particular, the first one where it's like you have to like look away from him. And then when he yawns, that's your instinct to attack. Or there's the butler where you light his candles and he has to run to put out his candles. So you have to follow him to a different room and then attack him in this room, so to speak. So it's like, it's all different manner of dispatching ghosts. I love it. I'm having fun with it. I can't believe I missed it. I want to get the 3DS. I think I'm going to try to hunt for that at MGC. But I know they made the second one for the 3DS and the third one for the Switch. And I think I want to get these games. So, really cool. But there's probably a good portion of you that saw the title of this episode and they want to know more about this light gun. So let's talk about this light gun. I got it in the mail yesterday. So this isn't going to be a long-term review or a hugely focused review. I spent a couple hours playing it last night, and obviously I could talk about my first impressions and some of the games I played. So out of the box, I got this from Stone Age Gamer. I subscribed to their newsletter. They send me this update a couple weeks ago saying, "Hey, we got this light gun that we're going to be releasing soon. Add it to your wish list." And I'm looking at it and it's like, works on the PlayStation 2? And I got like a ton of light gun games for the PlayStation 2. So I was super stoked for it. And I was like, God, I've never heard of this company. I never heard of this gun even being mentioned. So I'm like, I'm in. So I bought it. It was like $120 off the website. And I thought, I don't know why, I thought it was a pre-order. And all of a sudden I get a notification, I think a day or two later, like, hey, we just shipped it. So I was like, oh, snap, this is complete opposite experience of what I had when I did the the light gun for the Polymega, where I have to wait like a year and a half to 2 years. So out of the box, it comes with the light gun, and it looks kind of like the Justifier a little bit. Very good, it feels like very good quality, kind of heavy, but not like unbearably heavy, but it feels like it's got some weight to it. And I want to say I think it's infrared. I don't think it's got a webcam in it like some of the other ones do. I know there's like the Sinden light gun that has like a webcam in it that kind of works with, PCs and stuff like that, whatever. You can buy this directly from the website, or you could buy this from Stone Age Gamer, but I think Stone Age Gamer is just like obviously they specialize in, they're an online video game store, so to speak, and they specialize in a lot of retro stuff. I've used them for a lot of different things like cords, cables, and accessories and everything, and I saw them post this, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm in on this. You can get this in blue, you can get this in gray. I got it in gray. What's in the box is a link cable that links it with a 2-player. So you can actually play games with 2-player, with 2 guns, so to speak. There is a charge cable, USB-C charge cable. That's what charges the gun. The gun actually comes separate. So like the stock and the actual barrel of the gun itself is like, it needs to be connected. And like you need to screw in with like a little Allen wrench. And they give you both. They give you the screw and they give you an Allen wrench to use. So you connect this ribbon cable into the stock, and then you attach it, screw it in, and then you're pretty much good to go. So some assembly required. It comes with an infrared sensor. So it comes with like basically it's almost like a Wii, the Wii sensor, the Wii bar. You put it on the top of your TV and it's infrared. So it's like able to identify what space you're working in. So that's why it's like, this isn't necessarily webcam based like the Polymega light gun that I had, or the Sinden, or any of the other ones that are out there. They recommend, and I think it's pretty much almost like a requirement, they recommend that you use a HDMI converter. So this should be used with, like, obviously it works specially for HDTVs, but they recommend you use like an HDMI converter. So like, obviously I have my PlayStation 2 hooked up to my RetroTink. So it's pretty much an upscaler, so to speak. And then it comes with 2 dongles, because this is wireless. There's no wires to this at all, which is, I was like, I'm sold. Wireless. It's crazy. It comes with the PlayStation port dongle that plugs into both the PlayStation 1 and 2. And it comes with a small USB one, which is exclusive to the PlayStation 2, obviously. Now, the USB dongle is for GunCon 2 compatibility, because the GunCon 2 has kind of like the analog stick at the, by the stock, and then obviously it's got more buttons, whereas the GunCon 1 had just like general buttons, so to speak, on the side of it. And then it's got the button on the, kind of like below the stock, right underneath your, your kind of like the hand is used to hold the gun with. So yeah, like I said, some guns use specifically the GunCon 2. So you need to plug in the correct dongle. And it's pretty simple in terms of connecting it. All you do is turn it on. There's a switch right at the front of the gun. And then there's a button right below the nozzle, right below the kind of where the muzzle is. That's your sync button. So you plug in the GunCon 2 port or the GunCon 1 port. You hit the pair button on there, on the dongle, when the system's on, obviously. And then you hit the button in the front of the gun that syncs both. And then there's a big light on the side of the gun, on each side of the gun, actually right above the trigger, that shows basically charging, how well it's charged, and then if it's connected or not. The A and B button on the side of the gun, actually right at the front of the handgun, also light up too. There's also a recoil mode on this, which is really cool. It's not the loud recoil mode like the Bandai Namco guns, the regular GunCons. But it's still like kind of like does this really cool vibrating feature, which I think it's still cool. It didn't need to do that, but it did. And it's doing it very well. And then there's a rapid fire mode. So you can fire in 1-round bursts or 3-round bursts. Keep in mind, some games do check your accuracy. So, yeah, like full package. You got all this stuff in it. You can buy ones with an HDMI converter kit. And I want to say if you don't have a RetroTink or an HDMI converter kit, they do on the website sell you both. So like for example, I bought it, like I said, for $130, and it came with just a gun. Didn't come with an HDMI converter kit. I didn't really need to. On the website, if you buy the double pack with 2 light guns in it, you're talking about $220, and that's right now. It looks like it's on sale right now, and it comes with the HDMI converter kit and everything like that. So, yeah, like this is really cool. And it's got this weird, once you plug it in, you don't have to do any external calibrations. It pretty much works right out of the box. So most games, when you start it up, so say for example, Time Crisis, you boot up Time Crisis, and the first thing you see after the Namco flash screen, whatever, the calibration screen. So you point the gun at the screen just like you would any normal game, and then you click down the analog stick that's right above your the stock or whatever, and then you hit the trigger, and that's how you enable the mechanism to like calibrate the gun, so to speak. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't well enough. So there's a couple ways you can kind of troubleshoot this. Now, one thing that the gun makes you do is you have to set your corners. So you have to set upper left and lower right. And there's going to be buttons right underneath that analog stick on the back of the gun that has you enable that. And it actually, infrared, lets you know, are you in range or are you out of range? So a green light will pop up to let you know you're in range. So you point to the upper left of the screen, you hold the button down, you click the trigger. And I'm doing this manually. You can't see me, but I'm doing this manually to the microphone, like you guys can see what I'm doing. Anyway, I'm still going to do it. And then you point to the bottom right of the screen, you hit the button, pull the trigger, and then that creates your boundary, so to speak. Is it perfect? Probably not, because this game has recommendations for how far away you stand for your TV. The company recommends you have at least a 42-inch screen. However, I'm playing on like a 65-inch TV screen, and the recommendations they say is to stand at least 10 feet away from the screen, which is not how far I sit back. So some games, you have better calibration and better accuracy when you sit closer and when you sit further away. So, for example, first game I booted up, Time Crisis 2. I needed to be a little further back in order for my calibration to be right, which is weird. And Time Crisis 2 played great. Once the calibration was down, which took like I think 1 or 2 tries to get it right, game played flawlessly. No drift, nothing like that. Didn't have to recalibrate again. Everything worked great. The recoil feature worked awesome. Like I said, it's just a rumble, but it worked great. It just works as intended. Felt good. Like I said, I tend to really like kind of grip the gun hard. So a lot of times I get that hand fatigue, but that's my problem. So, but yeah, works great, worked flawlessly. I mean, the game is super fun. I love Time Crisis. It's probably like one of my, if not my favorite, like light gun shooter series. After that, I played Resident Evil Dead Aim. That I needed to sit a little closer to in order for the calibration to be right. The game works where basically it's like you go into third person mode, you're moving around with the analog stick. When you're ready to switch to start shooting, you click the trigger, you go into first person mode, and then you gotta, use the light gun. And I had accuracy problems in the beginning because I was sitting further away, and I needed to, once I got closer to the TV, not by much, maybe like a foot, then the accuracy was spot on. Then my gameplay experience was better. So it was kind of weird in that front. Like I said, not terrible, but once you kind of know how to troubleshoot it, it's fine. Like, really, I don't know what some people would expect. Some people wanted to just work out of the box with little to no problems, with little to no troubleshooting. Sometimes it's just like how these systems were back in the day. Depending on how far away you sat from it, and of course they're not 100% accurate all the time. So honestly, it's minimal of what I did. Like, yeah, I had to recalibrate it a couple times, or yeah, I had to sit maybe just a little bit closer, but it wasn't terrible. After that, it worked great. No other issues. After that, I played Endgame for the PlayStation 2, and that was the same thing. I calibrated it. I sat back. I calibrated it. Oh no, I sat forward, I think, this time around, and I calibrated it. It wasn't accurate. I sat back, kind of similar to where I sat for Time Crisis 2, and it worked much better. Like, I'm talking like I'm like popping shots like crazy. So Endgame was good. It was kind of like a Run Lola Run movie, but with like kind of really fast storytelling and light gun action. A lot of fun, honestly. It's a short game, but it encourages multiple playthroughs. But yeah, so it just works. It works as intended. There is an interesting caveat that I saw on this, on the websites, or I think on the instruction manuals, and I think they had like a frequently asked questions section where they were like, "Hey, can this work on PC?" And of course, no, it can't, because it's just specially designed for the PlayStation 2. But they also said, like, can this work on any other system? And they said not yet. So on the bottom of the gun, there is a little port. And I think they said it in the instruction manual that they said pedal support not ready. And this is a Chinese company, so a lot of the translation is a little muffled. But yeah, it leads me to believe that we're going to have foot pedal support for Time Crisis, which would be awesome. I like ducking and like using the front buttons on the gun to duck in and out of cover is not fun. I mean, it's fine, but like I'd rather use the foot pedal, just like in an arcade. And there could be support, at least what it looked like in the instruction manual and the frequently asked questions. It looked like there's a possibility that we're going to get Xbox support, we're going to get Dreamcast support, and maybe other systems supporting this. I'm not for sure. I'm hopeful. Like, I would love a Dreamcast support because I got a couple light gun games for the Dreamcast, so that would round things out for me. But yeah, like I said, it works on 4:3 aspect ratios. It works on 16:9. So you may have to do some finicky movement with the display resolution and everything like that. So yeah, it's Bluetooth. That's how it connects to the dongles. Yeah. So it's like I said, it works really well. You don't have to recalibrate it like I talked about in the past too. So honestly, it works really well. Like it gets my full thumbs up. I don't know. I'm not rating it. I'm not giving it a 9.9 out of 10 or anything like that. But there are manual controls that you can do. There is a little knob in the front of it that you can do manual adjustments if you need to move I think they call it vertical calibration, so to speak, where it was like, I think if you're moving up and down. So like, say if you're not sitting right level with your TV. So like if maybe your TV's up higher or down lower, you can adjust the angle of it. But if you're sitting level to your TV, you don't have to do anything like that. Otherwise, yeah, it works great. No problems. Like I said, it takes a little bit to kind of get used to the calibration part of it. It's not just plug and play like the other wired controllers or anything, but once you get it working, it works. What more can I say about it? So yeah, that's my impression. I'm going to try to see if I can put out a video, a more deep dive into like how I use it and everything and kind of how it works. So stay tuned for that. So otherwise, let's get into the news. So the Gaming Historian, one of YouTube's kind of more long-standing video game content creators, is going to be moving on from video game content creation into pretty much new ventures. And obviously, on his way out, he released a bunch of Nintendo court case documents. So this article is from PC Gamer, and a lot of articles that kind of talk about this, they say Gaming Historian calls it quits. And I'm like, it's making it sound like he's just done with it, or he's just, it sounds like inflammatory, where it's like, I quit, I'm over this, I'm done. And, he's not leaving because of whatever YouTubers complain about these days. Oh, I got demonetized, or I'm not making enough money, or YouTube doesn't support my content, or all this stuff. He's leaving literally due to just creative burnout, so to speak. So the gaming historian, also known by Norman Caruso, that's his real name, he put up a video last week. It was titled "Thanks for Watching," and admittedly, I didn't expect to see a video pop up. He hasn't made a video in, I think, about almost a year at this point. In this video, he details him stepping away from his YouTube channel, The Gaming Historian, to focus on other endeavors. In the video, he details a little bit about his creative burnout and his break from regular uploads to just focus on his own personal growth. And he talks about how he went on a hike, he went on vacation, he did things with his wife, he had, kind of kickstarted other projects, like kind of more history-related projects, and, kind of started to kind of focus on himself a little bit. He actually currently hosts a history podcast with his wife, Kristen, called The Old Timey Podcast. So he's been doing that. It's kind of, there's video and audio, and he releases updates regularly for that. I don't listen to it. I'm not much of a history podcast type of person, but it's cool that you can actually podcast with your wife. Caruso said in the video, quote, "I assumed that after a few months after making his last video he's talking about, I'd get the itch again to make a new video. To my surprise, that itch to make a new video just never really came back. I definitely tried to make something else. I even announced it on social media, but my heart just wasn't in it. And I knew that if I ever finished that video, the quality would suffer. That's when it finally clicked. I was ready to move on from the gaming historian." And if you haven't watched his last video that he did, was a documentary in Oregon Trail, the original game. It's well worth a watch. Really good. He, like I said, he's been around since 2008, and he's put out video content that's ranged from full-on video game documentaries, like actually my favorite one that he's done was Super Mario Bros. 3. It's really good. To just love pieces of some of his favorite things about video games, like oddball video game controllers, the U-Force, if you remember that, to deep dives into like video game cartridges and stuff. And his upload schedule has been sporadic. Of course, there's so much production that goes into his videos. It's crazy. And it's crazy that we're getting that content for free, guys. It's crazy. With his last video being that Oregon Trail documentary posted almost a whole year ago. But nonetheless, he put so much passion and heart into his videos. Like it just oozed professionalism, and it oozed love, that he loved the work that he was doing. And obviously on top of that, love that he was putting in editing, scene mock-ups, lighting, game recording, everything else. Just associated with video editing, even probably keeping up with comments and stuff. And it's not just putting a video out there. It's tough work, especially if you want to make high quality crap. Not crap, but high quality stuff. As he got more and more into YouTube content creation, obviously the quality jumped higher and higher. He's buying more equipment, buying nicer cameras, and all this stuff, set design, which of course made it more time consuming, I would imagine, to put out new videos. So almost like a full-time job. And to be fair, despite the fact that he's got 1 million subscribers, his view counts are all over the place. I would say on average, you can have 1 million subscribers, but maybe you're getting half of those, if that, watching your content regularly. That's why I can't stand it when content creators are like, subscribe to my channel. It really means the world to me. It's like, most of your subscribers don't watch your stuff. It's views. And some of his views got like quite a few million. Some got 100,000. It's just the way it is. And that's not a knock. It's hard to create and become successful on YouTube. It really is. Believe me, I know. Anyway, that's, like I said, that's a whole nother rant. But the other cool nod to this story was his last project was supposed to be a documentary on the infamous Nintendo court case in 1983 against Universal Studios over the Donkey Kong video game. And it said it was in violation of its own property, King Kong. And the case was basically Universal City Studios Incorporated versus Nintendo in 1983, heard by the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York by Judge Robert W. Sweet. In their complaint, Universal Studios alleged that Nintendo's video game Donkey Kong was a trademark infringement of King Kong, the plot and characters of which Universal claimed as their own. Nintendo argued that Universal had themselves proven that King Kong's plot and characters were in the public domain in Universal City Studios Incorporated versus RKO General. So they pulled up an old court case and said, no, your claim is false because it was labeled as such here. The judge ruled that Universal had acted in bad faith by threatening Nintendo's licensees and that it had no right over the name King Kong or the characters and story. He further held that there was no possibility for consumers to confuse Nintendo's game and characters with the King Kong films and their characters. Universal appealed the case, but the judgment was upheld. I mean, they tried, but the case was a pretty big victory for Nintendo, which was still at this time was a newcomer. You know, they weren't as big as they are now with suing everybody that they see. So in the decision that was rendered on July 15th, the court upheld the previous verdicts, ruling that Universal did not have trademark rights to King Kong. And Universal did not stop after it asserted its rights to Nintendo. It embarked on a deliberate, systematic campaign to coerce all of Nintendo's third-party licensees to either stop marketing Donkey Kong products or pay Universal royalties. So also, Universal's conduct amounted to an abuse of judicial processes, and in that sense caused a longer harm to the public as a whole. So yeah, the lawyer that Nintendo had, John Kirby. Nintendo thanked John Kirby while also paying his lawyer fees with a $30,000 sailboat christened the Donkey Kong, along with exclusive worldwide rights to use the name for sailboats. It's funny. The title character in Nintendo's Kirby series of video games was named after John Kirby, of course, if you haven't figured it out. So it's also, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's rumored that a copy of the first game in the franchise, Kirby's Dream Land, was eventually sent to John Kirby, who was humored and flattered. So one of the first physical copies that Nintendo printed, they sent it to him. So Nathan was doing research on this thing. So basically, he got all the court documents from this case, from I think the internet, like some archive, some library archive or something like that. Because obviously this is all public domain stuff. So he pulled all of them, scanned all of them into his computer, all these documents, painstakingly did all that process, and now all of it is available on the Internet Archive for you to view from him. So this was the gift from him where he was like, I did all this work, I was going to make this video. Obviously I'm not going to make this video anymore, but here are the court documents. They're on the Internet Archive. Just go to the website and you can read them at your heart's content. I didn't read them, but it's pretty cool. Anyway, I wish him the best in his future endeavors, and I can sympathize being a long-term quote content creator myself, that it can be hard to just keep the creative juices flowing for so long. Your fans look forward to it week after week, and in many cases they just don't see the toil in it. They don't see how hard it is that you work in making these videos. I mean, we're talking hours and hours and hours and days, weeks, sometimes months to just put out just one video that somebody sits down and watches for 20, 30 minutes that took you a couple months to make. They don't see the burnout. Obviously, they just see the videos. That's it. And obviously you're putting on a face for social media. They don't see what's happening on the inside. Oof, I don't need to get that deep. Nathan said as much. He wanted to get out well before his quality started to suffer. So he took pride in his work. So yeah, best of luck to you. I know we'll still see you around. So now you can find a way, and this applies to some people. This doesn't apply to me because I don't buy these games. You can find a way to get better at detecting counterfeits with the Retrace app. And this article is according to Retro Dodo. The company Epilogue has released a new mobile app called Retrace. And this app is designed to work on both your Apple devices and Android devices in conjunction with the GB operator, the Game Boy operator. So in case you haven't, if you're not hunting for games, this doesn't apply to you, but there's a whole world of fake games out there. And I'd say this is notoriously prevalent in Pokemon games for the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. So this app helps collectors identify fake cartridges by searching for specific markers and provides a confidence level to help users decide if a game is authentic before purchasing. People take 3D printed, cartridges, whatever, slap labels on them and print these cartridges and these labels to look pretty much spot on identical to the original. down to the inner workings of what the chip looks like. And, they'll sell them for those like high-end Pokemon prices, but it'll probably cost them $20, if that, in supplies to make it. So, and they're selling them. If you were going to sell them and publish them to be like, hey, this is a reproduction copy, fine, do that. There's people that probably would rather have that than spend $300 on a Pokemon game. But if you're tricking your consumers by saying this is authentic, this is real, go F yourself. Like, seriously. That's so scummy. So this app kind of knows now where it's like, if you want to check to see if it's actually authentic, you can put it in your GB operator and the app will tell you. So to function, the app must be connected via this USB-C cable to the GB operator, and the SN operator that they have right now, this is going to work for that too as well. Beyond spotting fakes, Retrace can identify game regions, revisions. They can also display save files and provide real-time market values for both loose and box copies. So you can not only can you tell if it's fake, it actually shows you how much it's going for currently in the market. So if you're walking into a game store, or even like you're walking to a convention, you can carry this with you, especially if you're trying to find Pokemon Game Boy games or the Game Boy Advance games. And the chances of you finding a repro game out there that's marketed as authentic is high. It's unfortunately really high. Especially some of the sellers just don't have any idea, or they don't know what to look for. And it's not their fault in some cases. Some of these repro copies are getting pretty good nowadays. And, there could be a mom and pop shop out there that really has no idea. They won't know what to look for. They won't know what are the telltale signs of all this stuff. So with this, you can protect yourself from getting screwed. And maybe the sellers can use this as well too, so they know what they're buying, so they're not overpaying for something that's a repro copy. I have the GB operator myself, and if you don't know what it is, it basically rips Game Boy games into ROM files for emulator devices and computers and so on. And actually, if you plug this into your PC, you could play the game right off the device on your PC. It works real well. It's simple, pretty cheap, all things considering. It's $60 on the website. The SN operator can rip SNES and Super Famicom games too, but it's, as of right now, it looks like it's currently out of stock. And it's, as I say, I think that's $60 as well. They have something else coming in the pipeline, encryptic text on the website. So I'm wondering if it's Sega Genesis. That'd be pretty cool. If last bit of news here, if you have been paying attention to what's going on out there in the real world, and you're in the market for maybe a retro handheld or any handheld in general, you may be in for it. And this shouldn't be a surprise, really, especially if you keep up with tech news. A lot of companies that are making retro handhelds, even modern handhelds, are just jacking up their prices due to higher demands for RAM, SSD drives, and of course, tariffs. And if demand goes up, obviously companies are like, hey, we can squeeze some more money out of this if we increase demand. So, more and more people are getting into these retro handhelds. It's really kind of nice, convenient thing that a lot of people are getting into, especially PC gaming. PC handhelds are getting pretty powerful. Like, for example, the Lenovo Legion Go 2 just went up $600. This is probably the most powerful handheld you can get right now compared to like the Steam Deck and maybe the Asus ROG Ally X. But I mean, $2,000, that's what this puts this at. Yikes. Actually, interestingly enough, I think I saw a news article that the Asus ROG Ally, the Xbox version, just went down, like I think $50, or the cheaper version just went down. So right now it's like almost $500. So that may be your best option. The AYN Odin 2, Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, the Ambernic RG Cube, the Evercade EXP are all going up in price. And that's only some of them. I'm pretty sure most of them are. Some of them are just completely, I think some of Retroid is actually just discontinuing some of their models just because it's too expensive to make and they wouldn't make a return on their investment. And these companies are also making new hardware, of course, and it seems like every week there's some new announcement that showcases new tech or this new company that's making this new thing. So I feel like I should have a second podcast just talking about all these retro handhelds, but that's why I don't talk much about them. So, yeah. So with that being news, let's get into the releases that are coming out. There's really not much coming out for, retro kind of remasters or remakes or anything like that this month. And this is the beginning of April, so there's only really one. Sigma Star Saga DX. I've never played this game before. but this is a refined version of the 2005 adventure RPG shoot 'em up hybrid, which is interesting. This is out now on Switch 1 and 2, PlayStation 5, and PC. This was published by Namco for the Game Boy Advance. Sigma Star Saga, let's try saying that 3 times fast, is a genre-shattering science fiction adventure that transitions from character-driven top-down exploration to real-time side-scrolling space shooter action. It's really unique. I watched a kind of like extended video of it. I'm like, this actually looks pretty cool, like a very unique kind of game design mock-up. You're an elite Earth pilot, Ian Wrecker. You must infiltrate the invading Krill Empire and defeat them from within by traversing numerous planets, interacting with memorable NPCs, and wielding dozens of types of weapons that allow for thousands of powerful combinations for his ship. Newly updated for the game's 20th anniversary, the game retains all of the gameplay and content of the original release, but adds numerous refinements, including an improved map, decreased random encounter rate. Random encounter rate, I think you either love or hate whatever, rate it is. Rebalanced EXP system, modified hitboxes, adjusted auto fire, enhanced dialogue, additional save points, tons of bug fixes, and more. So that's it. That's all that's coming out this month. I'm pretty sure there's more coming out later, but I post these kind of types of episodes like once a month. So as far as for, if you own the modern systems, if you're a PlayStation Plus Classic subscriber, I think even just like a Essentials subscriber, you're getting the remaster of Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3. It's a great remaster. I have it for the Switch, and you can play it in modern graphics, kind of obviously smoothed out graphics and more quality of life improvements in terms of controls and everything. Or you could play it in the old polygon graphic way and with the original tank control screen, which is whenever I see this game and whenever I play it, it's the only way my brain knows how to play this game. I can't do modern controls on old Resident Evil games. I can't do modern controls on these Tomb Raider games. If you're new to the space, you're probably going to love the new control scheme and hate the old control scheme, but not going to yuck anyone's yum. If you're on Xbox Game Pass, you're going to be getting Final Fantasy IV Pixel Remaster. I imagine we're going to get a new one every month. And then if you're a Nintendo Switch 2 online member, whatever they call that expansion pass, you got Pokemon Stadium for the GameCube. You got also Mario vs. Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, and Mario Tennis and Mario Clash for the Virtual Boy. I wonder if that's a system I should be collecting for. Maybe I should find a Virtual Boy. I don't know. That's a lot of money. Anyway, let's get to the talking point. Gamers in my generation, and I identify with the older millennial generation, and even Gen X, we know a thing or two about video games. We were there from the beginning, and we saw the ups and downs, the bad, the very good, the almost passable, this is all we had as well. The developers really at these times were just throwing things at walls to see what would stick. And a lot of it didn't. There was a lot of experimentation. There was a lot of let's take a chance and see if this works. I got this idea. Let's try to make a game out of it. Admittedly, we were still eating good with gaming. We got now we're eating pretty good. We got so many quality of life improvements. We've learned lessons from the past. We got impressive graphics, gameplay, experiences. We have a game genre for everybody's little niche. And we got experiences in these games that make us feel a whole wide range of emotions. There are things we experienced when we were younger, though, that those picking up video games now would probably wonder how the hell we were able to survive with these types of games. So in today's talking point, I'll go through some of this stuff and reminisce about what we had back then. This is a heavy nostalgia selection, and there'll be kind of 10 points I'll bring up. But so you may relate to some of them, you may not relate to some of them at all, or you may think to say, I'm glad we don't have that anymore. And there's some in here that I'm glad we moved past that. But back then, that was what we had. So I may drudge up some of those deep-seated feelings down in your soul and conjure up some memories. So there was no online. There was no internet. So if you wanted to try a game, game demo discs were where it was at. And there was tons of different video game magazines, tons. You would go to Walgreens or you would go to CVS or whatever grocery store you had where they had the magazine section, there was a whole corner just dedicated to like tons of different video game magazines. And some of them had demo discs. You put them in your system and then you would try the games out, and you would get them once a month, once every other month. And it was really the place to, discover new games and see if you like it or not. You can get them mailed to you as well. You can get random discs mailed to you from these magazine companies. You can get them with your meal. I remember Pizza Hut had promos back then with demo discs. I mean, even demos packed in games themselves. I think I remember Zone of Enders for the PlayStation 2 back then had a demo of Metal Gear Solid 2 in it. There was I think Dino Crisis. Was it Resident Evil 3 came with a demo of Dino Crisis? Stuff like that, where it was made by the same publisher, made by the same team. And it was like, hey, try this game out that we're working on next. So it was a really cool place, whether you were interested or not. Most people would be like, I'm not interested in that, so I'm not going to play it. But, it also encouraged sales. Sometimes I imagine a lot of people picked up Zone of Enders just for that demo disc. I think I remember there was a Final Fantasy game I picked up for the Xbox One that had a demo of Final Fantasy 15 in it that I was like, I'm going to pick that up. Obviously, they don't do this anymore. They don't do demo discs anymore because you can just download them now. But that was the time to really discover things. PlayStation was really crucial with this. They had tons of demo discs, and they continued with the PlayStation 2 as well. So, there was in a lot of these cases too, there was no internet. There was no game facts to look up walkthroughs or anything like that. So if you had a big game that had a lot of caveats in it, big worlds or whatever, you had to buy a guide. And a lot of times, I remember like GameStop or Funkoland or whatever they called it back then, they had these, they had 20% off buying the guide. So if you bought the game new, you would get 20% off the guide, which I did a lot because there was a lot of earlier games that I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to buy the guide right away. Especially, I think I remember doing this with remember old PlayStation 2 games like Splinter Cell. I did it with the original Halo games. When I got the games, I just got the guides right away. And they tell you everything about the game. I mean, it's a good place to catch some cool artwork, but also maps for some of the levels. In the Halo games, they had the maps of every multiplayer map in it. So that was a good place to see oh, hey, look at this spot that's on this map. I could probably use that as a choke point, or, I could hide here or whatever like that. Or, don't go in that area because that could be an ambush point, so to speak. So, or that could be a place where weapons drop. Yeah, it's a good, you don't have to go on the internet. I mean, we didn't have phones back then. We would just sit there playing a game and just pull up our phone, and nowadays I can just pull up YouTube and look at a walkthrough. Especially for some games where I'm just I don't know where to go. I'll just pull it up on YouTube. Oh, it's on there, or just do a Google search. Somebody posted a walkthrough of it. When GameFAQs came out, obviously that's when guides started to kind of go the way of the dodo, and a lot of these guys were doing these GameFAQs for free and hoping for donations, which is kind of risky, man. I don't know if I'd do that. Work for free with the hope of maybe some gentle soul cutting me a couple bucks for my work. I was just more excited for the guides. Eventually they take up room, and maybe once you use it once, you don't use it again. So code books as well. We got a lot of different code books, and mostly for the earlier stuff. I actually have a Game Genie code book for my Nintendo that I ended up picking up, I think, on a whim a couple of years ago. And it had, obviously, Game Genies for the Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo. I think, obviously, once we got to the PlayStation, we got Game Shark and other things. And, yeah, they were just basically codes that would break the game, so to speak, or give you infinite ammo, infinite lives, infinite continues, invisibility, or maybe just extra weapons or gear and stuff. Nowadays, obviously, say for example with Grand Theft Auto 3, they would put the codes in the game, and back then we'd have to write them down. We had to write down passwords, we had to write down codes. That's why manuals were so important to have in games. that's just another one. That's like, we don't have manuals anymore. We don't have anything to read. There's no lore. There's no like, hey, here's the control scheme for these games. Now you could just pause the menu and like go through 3 different slides to access your control scheme instead of just pulling the book open. Or even like you want to get caught up on what some of the characters are. You can look in the book that the game gave you. So also too, in these books, they had like a little, section for notes, 1 or 2 pages. This is where you would write your codes. This is where you would write maybe little tips or tricks for yourself. Passwords, even like if you're playing a game and it has a password, there was no autosave function. There was no save points. You had to write passwords so you can continue back to where you last left off. So, there were no manual saves. You had to write down passwords. You had to write down codes. My Grand Theft Auto 3 book, I think, had a ton of codes. I don't think I have my original copy anymore, but I remember writing all my, codes in my book, and tons of other different books too. Mega Man, all this stuff. So there's a likely chance that if you buy any games that come with manuals, that someone wrote their codes or someone wrote their passwords in them. So take a look. Take a look and see what you can find. You might find some interesting stuff. Good snapshots in history. But, going back to that, there were no manual saves in a lot of games. You had to write down passwords. And, a lot, we had systems that didn't have internal storage. So you would store some save files on the cart. Like, obviously, the original Legend of Zelda was notorious for this because it was like, holy crap, you can actually save your progress on the card itself. You don't have to write a password down. Like with Mega Man, you have to write it was like an 8x8 grid with dots, and you have to like write the dots and random patterns and stuff. That's how you saved your data. There were no checkpoints. If you stopped playing the game, you had to start completely over unless you had the password. There were no manual saves. You couldn't save scum. In a lot of games, you had one save. In a lot of cases, that was it. Before internal storage was the thing, I think Xbox was the first home console to have internal storage. You had to save on a memory card. You had Nintendo 64 and the original PlayStation that had memory cards where you could save so much data and you can take that data with you to go to your friend's house. And it's like, hey, let's like fire up my save and then let's keep playing at your place instead of my place. So it was obviously portable. Of course, you had to buy so many of these memory cards because they could fill up so much. And you don't want to delete any of your saved data just in case. So, yeah. Like I said, nowadays you could just save scum everything. One game can have like 100 saves in it or something like that, which is kind of crazy to me. So, and then there's cloud saving. So you could save your data in the cloud somewhere. Couldn't do that anymore. Having a limited amount of lives and starting over from the start when you ran out of continues. You had lives and you had continues. And, it's not infinite. It's not infinite respawning, once you only had a certain amount. So they gave you a little bit more anxiety to be like, I only have 2 lives left and I'm at the last level. I hope I don't screw this up, because if you do, bam, you got to start completely over. And these are more anxiety ridden in a lot of the games that don't have saves, don't have passwords, where it's like one playthrough and you're done. So if you wanted to sit down and play a game from start to finish, these are games where it's like, this is your shot. If you lose all your lives and you lose all your continues, you go all the way back from the beginning. So yeah, like it kind of gave a little bit of like extra degree of difficulty, gave a big degree of anxiety to the point where it's like, you don't want to take risks. You don't want to take chances. You wanted to play it safe because it's like, I only have so many lives to lose here. And there's maybe points where it's like, okay, I know I'm going to lose a lot of lives in that section. So you want to come in prepared. So you're kind of hyping yourself up to practice, to become better at these games, instead of just like, oh, I barely made it through it. But thankfully I had like, unlimited respawns and stuff. Back then we had limits. And if you failed, game over, start from the beginning. And that would be the point where it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing this run back again. So, I mean, you can complain about games, and I complain about like some games nowadays that have these like ridiculous run backs where it's like they'll save and they'll start you all the way back from like your last save, or the last checkpoint was maybe like 10 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago. And I get annoyed with that. And I'm like, oh God, this sucks. This run back sucks. But then again, playing Ninja Gaiden, all of a sudden seeing that game over screen, and I'm like, I was almost there. And now I'm dead, and now I got to start completely over. God, how did we live like that? It's crazy. Think about it now. Dial-up internet, that's another one. We didn't have online connectivity, as many of you probably talked to your kids about, to say like we didn't have the internet back when I was growing up. We had dial-up. We had to use the house phone to connect to the internet. We didn't have broadband or satellites or anything like that. In some cases, it took over 30 minutes to connect to online games. So original Warcraft, I remember playing Doom. I didn't have dial-up at the time when Doom was really big in PC. I think we got internet late, but I didn't have the. I don't know why, but I don't think it was just a big thing. I mean, I had Doom on my PC at the time, but my friends were the ones that wanted to play, so it would still be the same way. Like we would get together. I would get together at my friend's house, and we would just like go back and forth playing it on his PC, Doom against our friends and stuff. So it was kind of a wild time where it's like now it's just you turn your system on and you're just on the internet. No wait, no delay. It's fast paced, fast speed, easy to connect online to people, to players, to your friends. It's just so much easier now. You don't even think about it. Whereas back then it was like a production. But yeah, that kind of leads me to the next point of just like couch co-op. There was a time during the 360 and PS3 era where couch co-op just went away in favor of multiplayer, online co-op, online multiplayer, and split screen type stuff kind of went away. I think because of resolution issues, where it was like it just wouldn't look good if it was split screen, which I think is I'm not a tech expert, but sometimes I think that's just a BS cop out. You can make it work. I think I remember Resident Evil 5 for the 360 and PS3 had couch co-op, and it like resolutioned the screens to a point where it was like still in the same kind of format, but also shrunk down a little bit smaller than what your TV's resolution was at. It was I remember it was weird at the time, because like you would think like it would just be like say like Halo, for example, playing that in couch co-op, it would take up the whole screen. Something different with the 360 and PS3 era that it just didn't do it that way. So I want to say I think developers are just like, you know what, everyone's playing online now. And that took away a lot of the fun of like getting together and playing with your homies, or playing with your friends, of just sitting down, going up to a friend's house, just like, hey, let's play a game. Either passing the controller back and forth or just playing the game at the same time. You bring your own controller, or your friend has the really crappy controller that it's like, here, use this crappy controller so you can play it. I remember those days of playing GoldenEye to my friends' houses, and I'd have to remember to bring my own controller because they have all the crappy controllers that I don't want to use. So yeah, like it becomes a more personal, fun experience. And I mean, a lot of times my feeds are inundated with tons of reels of like old videos of people at LAN parties, or, just kind of like old memories people bringing up of just like, yeah, my friends and I used to play, these co-op games back and forth all the time, playing old beat 'em ups like Double Drag and Streets of Rage, even just like playing one-on-one games, Street Fighter, like couch co-op in the same living room with you. And you would get together with your friends and it'd be a production. There'd be 4, 5, 6 of you just passing controller back and forth. Like, hey, winner stays on, like, especially with Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, all those old fighting games, winner stays on, and everyone just kind of takes their turns back and forth. And it's a social production. Like, it's just getting together with your friends and just sitting around the campfire and just, shooting with each other, whatever. And just pass the controller back and forth, or just like sharing experiences. I talked about Halo. One of my good friends that I still wish I keep in touch with now. I kind of don't know how anymore, but him and I, Halo 1, Halo 2 co-op. Dude, I get together at his place like every week and just like, let's keep the campaign going. Hey, now that we beat the game, let's go play Legendary. It was such good times that you would just like yeah, let's just, order some pizza. Let's chill. Like, obviously, when we were old enough, we would start cracking beers. Or, obviously, when we were younger, it was sodas and stuff. And I mean, I could sit and have a whole episode just talking about couch co-op. But if you, I don't know, you could still, there's still a lot of couch co-op games you still can experience. You can always play retro games with your friends here. Even if you're younger. You can still experience a lot of this. And I want to say, don't miss out on it. Those are some of the best times I had, the best nostalgic memories I had with my friends playing games in the same room together and just having a good time. I talked about knowing game maps. I feel like a lot of times, especially with more open world games, you have to really remember your surroundings. And granted, the worlds were smaller. They're not like Assassin's Creed maps like how they are now, where you actually need a map to know where you're going. But, there were no in-game maps. So you have to kind of really like remember where you were going, so to speak. But this more applies to open world games. And we didn't get a lot of retro open world games, especially ones big enough where you really could get lost, so to speak. I mean, remember just loaning a game to someone? I loaned 2 games to 2 of my coworkers the other day. And I was like, God, I remember like doing this more frequently of just like asking your friends like, hey, what are you playing right now? Oh, hey, when you're done with that, can I borrow it? Like, I'll loan you this game. And, just loaning games to people. And then like, you're treating your friends like your own personal Blockbuster. And then just renting games in general. Like, instead of just like buying a game and taking a chance, like go out and rent it. Go out and try it, Granted, yeah, video game developers don't make their money from rentals, but you could have a person out there that's like, I don't want to spend $50, $60 on this game. I want to try it to see if I like it. And then they rent it. There's a potential they can go buy it. I mean, that's kind of the appeal of what Xbox says with Game Pass, where it's like you could try it and then you could go buy it on top of that. And I know, like I said, the rental space is just kind of like a funny thing right now because obviously the market died in the early 2000s, mid 2000s with rentals, where it was like just kind of went the way of the dodo bird. People stopped renting games. I want to say maybe people had more disposable income to the point where it's like, I don't need to rent games. I'm just going to go out and buy it. So I honestly, I wish rental places were still there. I really wish I could just go to a Blockbuster or a Planet Video or a Hollywood Video and just rent a PlayStation game, PlayStation 5 game, Xbox game, whatever, Nintendo Switch game. I wish you could still do that. I mean, we tried to do it with Redbox, but I think that was a failed experiment because a lot of people were stealing because there was no accountability. But I think I really honestly think there is a place for video game rentals nowadays, even movie rentals. Like, nowadays, like, how the hell are you going to find a movie that you want to watch if you don't have the streaming service? Or like, oh, I want to watch this movie, but it's on Paramount. I don't have Paramount. And you're not going to spend a month just to watch a movie that you want. Or those freaking Amazon video rental rates. $20 to rent a movie on Amazon Prime. It's crazy. And that's not for all of them, but it's really, really dumb. So instead of just like, maybe like, hey, I want to watch this movie, I'll go rent it. I'll go walk to my physical store, pay $5-7, however much it would be. And yeah, I just remember, I think in Blockbuster days, 99-cent video rentals for some of the older stuff, which is wild. You could rent like 5 movies for like $5. It's crazy. It's just, like I said, it'd be cool if someone, I think there's a couple places in California that do video and video game rentals, which I think Gen Z's kind of picking up now. Vintage retro's kind of in. So, last but not least, unlocking new things in games without needing to buy extra DLC and packs. And I noticed this I think I beat Resident Evil 9 Requiem, and there was an infinite ammo mode. And it was like, hey, spend this much in-game credits to unlock infinite ammo mode. So I was like, man, that's really cool, because not a lot of games have those kind of features nowadays, where it was like, hey, look at all these costumes that your character can have. Isn't that cool? Well, back in the day, you could play the game under certain conditions and unlock those costumes, or they would just be there. Nowadays, You can pay $10 extra and get all these costumes. Hey, you can pay $20. Hey, you have to buy this season pass to get more regular updates. And then they just inundate you with all this crap that, the stupid little tiny crap that means nothing to the game. Hey, here's a little weapon skin. Hey, here's a little like color scheme that you can use on your character that means nothing in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't even look cool. Like, there was times where it's like you could play a game multiple times and unlock certain new gameplay modes or other difficulties, or even just like extra weapons or additional costumes, or even game modes. For example, there was, I think, when you beat Resident Evil 3, you had to, in order to unlock Mercenaries mode, you had to completely beat the game, so that's cool, where it like kind of encourages you to complete the story to unlock more that the game has to offer, instead of just buying or like shelling out money for all this extra stuff. Like, the game should reward you for playing it instead of just like, give me more money. I don't know. This is an old man boomer rant type of thing. Like I said, have there been times in the past where I bought DLC for new games for little shit? Yeah, fine, I have. But, for the most part, I'd stay away from that, because I'm like, look, if you're not going to give me this in the game for me to earn on my own, and not even like, Star Wars Battlefront 2, like you have to play 200 hours just to get this thing. Like, give it to me in the game somehow. Let me, unlock it through a campaign or a certain mission or criteria, or just beating the game. And now it's like, hey, you want to play the game again? Here, we're going to give you all this extra stuff now to incentivize you to play the game even more. Like, I just, that's one thing I wish video games will go back to. Out of, I think, most of this list is like, I'm glad we moved past that. Like the whole memory cards thing. I'm glad we moved past for memory cards. I really am. We don't have like stacks of memory cards just sitting all over the place and then needing to like empty space and remove space. Most of the time I don't have to worry about save space on my systems now. But this is one that I wish we could go back to. This is why I kind of left it last, because this is one thing that retro did right, that modern screwed it up because of greed. And back then, this is why sometimes I feel retro is kind of like more authentic space for love of gaming, because they were doing it for the love of the game. Granted, they wanted to make their money back, and, they probably did in some cases. Some risks were, profitable. Some risks weren't. But I want to say there was a little bit more authenticity with good games and rewarding their players, instead of just, hey, give us more money. We'll give you this stuff. And you don't have to worry about it. And most people are like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. Which sucks, because people keep doing it. People keep spending all this extra money and all this extra DLC and stuff. If it's extra missions, like big, long campaign expansions, fine, that's one thing. Completely different, because that's extra development. But here's an extra costume that you could pay $10 for. No, I'm not interested in that. Well, that about does it for this week's episode. So thanks for listening, guys. Take it easy.